A few hours had passed with some minor healing and silence. It had been decided that everyone would need time to treat their own wounds before the plan to help save Bakugo from his own vampire biology was formed. And so everyone sat in silence, some awake, some passed out, some in comfort, and others in unsettled resolves. It seemed like time had slowed down significantly as the only sound was the soft pattering of rain. And then it ended. The front door was being pounded against harshly, making everyone inside the small apartment jump at the sudden sound. You got up from helping tie Kirishima's last bandage around his wound. Todoroki held out a hand in front of you as you paced toward the door, his silver and blue orbs looking at you with seriousness for a moment. You nodded to him slowly, asking for him to trust you. He sighed and allowed you to go to the door, keeping himself close to you like a shadow. You opened the door and soon gasped as you were pulled forward. Todoroki jumped after you, throwing the door harshly against the wall as he reached to snag his childhood friend back. She was not leaving his sight, not for one moment. However, when he saw a puffy mop of pink hair embrace you tightly, he paused, looking at the new girl who had arrived onto the scene. You hugged her back, sensing how afraid she must have been for her friends. "Thank you for watching these idiots," Mina mumbled. Kaminari is reckless, Kirishima dives in without thinking, and Bakugo is always a ticking time bomb. You nodded and gently pulled away from the pink-haired girl, her skin pale and her eyes missing the black tint. Mina smiled at you as you ushered her into your home. She stole a glance at the strange-haired boy next to the door as she entered. "Who's Prince Zuko?" she asked you once the door had been shut and you had entered the living room with her. "Todoroki Shoto, a very good friend from my childhood, and a hunter," you answered, only to see Mina's face grow dark for a moment, fear taking over. "He's friendly, despite how he acts, I promise, Ashido." "Do I not look friendly?" Todoroki asked, thinking about how he could have come off as such. As far as he knew and assumed, he was just as friendly, if not a little less vocal, than Midoriya was. "You have a special way of being friendly, Shell," you nodded to him. "One that not everyone understands." "Oh," was his curt answer. Mina chuckled lightly, already feeling much better. Todoroki seemed nice, if not a bit aloof, but he seemed to hold no ill intent toward her for him being a hunter. She was safe, meaning everyone else would be as well. "Ashido!" Kirishima called as the pink-haired girl walked into the room. "Thank God you're okay." Mina immediately went over to the injured werewolf and the barely conscious incubus. The boys smiled gently at her, only to immediately shriek when she smashed both their heads into their heads. The boys groaned, glancing at Mina's ticked-off face. "You're lucky you lived, 'cause I would have killed you if you died," she snapped, stomping her foot. "You reckless idiots. Look at what your fighting did to their poor apartment." "Not like we wanted to fight. Baku lost it," Kaminari mumbled, turning his head to the side. Mina looking to Kirishima, who had gone quiet. His red hair was seen to her, his face looking downward at his feet. Mina frowned, sitting on Kaminari's lap, but facing Kirishima. Kirishima looked at her, eyes strained and pained. "Hey," she breathed out softly. "I know I messed up," he breathed out. "No, you just missed your first opportunity. Lucky for you, you'll get another one, I'm sure." Kirishima looked at the girl with bewildered eyes before he nodded to himself and then to her. His smile returned. Smaller than usual, but at least it was back on his face. Mina smiled brightly, knowing it was good to see him not holding on to his guilt. You watched as the three friends began to talk amongst themselves, a small smile gently wiping off your features as your mind wandered back to your own. Bakugo's friends trusted him. and wanted nothing more than to save him and have him back with them. The four of them had been together for a while, their group of misfits making a new and supportive family amongst each other. They had secrets, but none that were kept that could change the group or how the built trust could be destroyed. The way such a tight-knit group should act. You rubbed your arms, locking them around you as you began to move toward the bathroom to get a band-aid for the small cut on your cheek. You moved silently, no one catching you. Midoriya and Uraraka were happily drinking some tea in the kitchen, Todoroki watching from the dining table not too far away. The three of them seemed to know something and have formed something you were never supposed to be a part of. It was rather lonely, watching all these people inside of the place where you rebuilt your life be so close and so together while you watched behind the outside in the cold air. Always left behind and not spared from the harsh reality that people left. And people don't come back. The cool water on your skin didn't do much, your thoughts beginning to get to the worse areas, places they had not explored for a while. This place was supposed to be where you had finally been able to live a life that you wanted, and meet the people and build the friendships you desired. But no different than your upbringing, it was all built upon lies. Midoriya and Uraraka had other motives. Todoroki had begun on a request that closely resembled the one you never wanted to see again. And the creatures you had been warned about and terrorized by the mere thought of for years turned out to be the kindest people you knew. You were sick of the lies, the coldness they left in you, and how it all made you. You felt alone. You felt like you would forever be stuck on this single-seated ride by yourself. Are you coming back out? Everyone's ready to talk. Uraraka's voice peeped into your thoughts. Out of the cold water, glancing a tired and emotionless look toward her slowly. She did her best to send you a smile of warmth and comfort, but it seemed to be lost on her friend. You began to walk back down the hallway towards where everyone was, only to be paused when Uraraka grabbed your hand. You stopped as she did so. No energy inside of you to fight back at this moment, so you stood there, not meeting her gaze. I wanted to tell you. Jackson wanted to tell you, but it's complicated. Our relationship to one another is complicated. It's just personal. You finished for her. Like how my relationship to my father is. Uraraka let go of your hand, bringing her own back to herself and holding it tightly near her chest. You turned to look at her from the corner of your eye, a betrayed and broken glance passing over your features. But you already know well aware of what my relationship with my father is like, right? You turned to go back to the living room, leaving Uraraka to her mistakes. Could Deku have been wrong? Could this have ended better? If she had done the job she was born to do, would you have understood? When this is over, I'll explain it all, she called out to you. And I'll tell you anything else you want. You simply nodded. I look forward to it then, Uraraka. Everyone was situated on the various couches and chairs in a circle. The tensions were present, but everyone knew of the risks, and the longer they sat on it, the worse Bakugo would get, the more dangerous he would become to everyone he ran into. So, where exactly do we start? Kaminari scratched his head. How about how he keeps getting through your barricade? Mina mumbled. I could have sworn I set it up right, Uraraka insisted. You did, Todoroki told her. The barricade isn't the problem right now, though. And when we get Bakugo back to his normal mindset, we can ask him how he keeps doing it then. So what then, Todoroki? Midoriya asked. It's in our best interest if we get him back here and use one of the rooms to trap him in. That way we can monitor him and give him what he needs when we find out what that is. I think I know what he wants, or at least is after, Kirishima mumbled. Really? Midoriya's eyes lit up. And what is it? Kirishima shuffled awkwardly, glancing around before he cleared his throat once more. It was strange. I got cut open, Kaminari was knocked out, and yet, every time, he went after them instead, as if we didn't matter. Todoroki's eyes widened, the dots clicking together finally. But that also meant, Bakugo would not stop until he... He's after me, isn't he? You mumbled, entering the conversation. Yeah, I think so. Kirishima spoke, biting his lip. Then why not give him what he wants? You shrugged, despite a few shocked looks and loud gasps. He's able to get in and out without an issue, and if he gets desperate enough, he'll come back. I wouldn't be surprised if he's watching me right now. You chuckled once. Damn leech. His obsession to get his stupid revenge on my father seems to be the only thing clogging his mind right now. He's such a pain in the ass. You're not doing it, Todoroki spoke, looking toward you with disapproving eyes. I'm not putting your life on the line. You heard it yourself, Shell. He's coming after me. You narrowed your eyes, and besides, I was trained the same way you were. The only difference being, I've had 5 years off. Todoroki nodded slowly, knowing that you were just as capable of taking care of yourself as he was. And with 6 others to protect you, then he shouldn't be as cautious as he was acting. He had to trust you. You were much better than him in youth, and he believed it was the same case here. All right then, he nodded towards you. If you're the bait, it's your plan. Perfect. Time to play a little game of cat and mouse then. He was getting close to his end, the ache in his throat having spread to the majority of his body. Every movement or soft gust of wind on him, making every nerve and fiber of his being burst into a terrible reactive state. His arms shook as he could see them nod to that group of assholes who were leaving out of the front door of the apartment. They had talked for a long-ass time, nearly making him lose the single thread of sanity he was clinging onto. His mind felt like it was sinking. The embodiment of himself holding on to this string as the thick red liquid began to further try to pull him underneath it. Promises of a pain-free escape and a good meal singing through his thoughts. He was too stubborn to give in, though. Not until he got them back for all the fucking torture they purposefully did to him. They knew. They had to fucking know. And it wrecked him on the inside to think that they allowed him to suffer this way. He smirked through the pain as they all finally left their place, the round-faced one lightly touching the entrances, and then they began to close their blinds as if a little added magic and fabric covers would keep him out. He was the nightmare of their childhood, right? So he supposed he was more than allowed to stir up some childhood trauma just for a little while. He couldn't have too much fun, as he would drop dead at any moment. He slowly crept toward the apartment, opening the sliding door quietly, entering the living room once more. They were careless, always always leaving it open or unlocked, always asking for him to find them and end them on his terms. He was quiet this time, unsure of how good the werewolf's hearing or the half-angel's senses were when it came to the noises or danger involving them. So, when he saw them standing in the kitchen, beginning to clean up some mugs, he knew it was the perfect time. He rushed forward, reaching out to grab them and hold them down for one last time. You turned right as he was too close to escape. Bakugo smirked, his hand colliding with your neck and then shooting through it. Your body turned to a puff of black and yellow smoke, and he growled, turning to see someone charging toward him. He dodged as the half-angel collided with a cupboard. Todoroki grunted as the vampire leapt into the living room and made another dash for the slider. Uraraka! the heterochromatic hunter called. Right, the fairy answered back, her hands illuminating a soft pink. Bakugo collided with the glass, or what he assumed to be glass. Turns out that the round-faced girl had literally turned the air near the sliding door into a solid force. She smirked at the ash blonde. I've got all exits covered, so you're trapped here with us, Bakugo. Like hell I am, he yelled, running toward Uraraka, and threw an arm forward, ready to slash her. Hands off, bro, Kirishima hollered, this time using his muscular arm to collide and knock Bakugo off track from attacking the fairy, while still allowing him to be on his feet. Fucking traitor, the vampire screamed, his hands twitching. Kirishima took notice, realizing what he might be doing, and that if the vampire actually did it, it might result in some much worse. Bakugo, you called, being held back by Midoriya. We're trying to help. His hands ceased, his attention now solely focused on you. His tongue darted out and licked his dry, cracked lips, red eyes looking at you with an intensity. And then, without warning, he burst forward in a great deal of speed. Bakugo grabbed Midoriya effortlessly, sending the green-haired alchemist flying into the bathroom door. It cracked from the weight and Midoriya laid among the wreckage. Bakugo smirked, delighted to see this annoying follower finally down. Unable to follow him to what he planned to do next. You turned, running back towards where the others were. However, Bakugo was too quick, and he grabbed you in an instant. You were dragged kicking and screaming into the bedroom before Bakugo slammed the door shut. Nowhere to run now. He breathes out heavily, dark eyes watching you. You glared at him, blinking a few times until your eyes changed softly from their normal color to a shade of golden black. You smiled as your form began to change, pink skin recoloring your appearance. I'd agree on that, Mina smiled, using the shock to jump past Bakugo as someone's hand reached through the door. She grabbed onto it and was pulled effortlessly through the door before it hardened again. The magic was gone, and then suddenly another one placed on the entire room. Bakugo's eyes widened, realizing what had happened. Outside of the door, Midoriya released Mina's hand. He breathed deeply, making sure nothing extra had been exchanged from his turning the door into a portal for a moment. Mina patted him on the back, muttering how thankful she was. On the bedroom door were Uraraka and Todoroki, making sure the enchantment was powerful enough to keep the vampire at bay for a while. Kirishima sighed, seeing as the episode had finally come to an end. The sounds of footsteps made everyone turn to see Kaminari and you returning from their hideout in the hallway. Kaminari immediately joined the other casters, adding his own type of magic to the shield. And before anyone could speak of an entrapping well done, the banging and screaming began, the rabid vampire on the other side not being happy about this outcome. Nor that once again, the one thing he needed to live had been dangled in front of his face and then pulled away. And his screams and ruthless pounding on your bedroom door clearly showed how desperate he was getting. The banging seems to have finally ended, Mina mumbled, shifting comfortably on the couch. Do you think he... No. Todoroki spoke to the shapeshifter. He's trying to make us think that, so we'll come in. He may be losing it, but he's still smart. Kachan, Midoriya sighed, glancing at his guide. Uraraka is your lock. She nodded. I made it specifically for him, so it should hold him until we decide to let him out. So what the heck are we supposed to do? Kaminari spoke up. Any blood is being rejected by him. The group began to think and attempt to find a solution. However, you remained near your bedroom door, looking at it with a knowing sense in your stomach. Somehow, despite it all, and not really knowing Bakugo's exact personal vampirism, you felt like you could fix this. The signs were all there. His attacks and drive to only get you. This only starting after he had the taste of your blood. And now, with Todoroki's insistence that you not get involved, you were what Bakugo needed. And unless you could give your blood to him once more, he would die. Are you going in there? You were nearly spooked by the voice that had snuck up behind you. You turned to see a bandaged and exhausted Kirishima behind you. Immediately you took him and helped him rest once more in the recliner chair near the kitchen and living room attachment. Rest, Kirishima, you coaxed him. You were impaled earlier tonight, remember? Yeah, I know, he chuckled, but you seem to be deciding on a more dangerous matter than me. Your face fell and you nodded. I think it's my blood that he needs. It's hard to explain, but... No, Kirishima interrupted. I think it makes perfect sense. You watched as his mind went somewhere else, his red eyes seeming to wander as well. Then slowly he snapped back and gave you a curt nod. You're a pretty smart and resourceful girl. I'm sure you can think of the best solution and help us get that lovable asshole back to his usual self, right? His big and toothy grin was enough to settle your nerves. You nodded softly and Kirishima gave you a quick thumbs up. You got up and went back towards the door to your bedroom. Todoroki had caught on to you trying to sneak back, and turned away from Kaminari and Mina to follow after you. However, as he did so, he ran into Uraraka, who seemed more than needing to talk to him suddenly. Midoriya watched as his guide acted so strangely, absorbing Todoroki into whatever he was saying as the green-haired man stood outside the bedroom. And then, as he blinked, you were next to him with a determined look. I need to go in there, Midoriya. You watched his face grow in shock. What? Are you crazy? Kachan's pretty much rabid at this point. Midoriya, please. I think I know what can help him, and only I can do so, you begged. Midoriya closed his eyes, gritting his teeth as he thought it over. On one hand, he wanted to give you the chance, but on the other, this was an extremely dangerous chance, one that could get you killed. But as Midoriya opened his eyes once more, he knew what his choice could be. That look of worry and determined but begging eyes, he couldn't take it, and as he snapped his head downward and bit his lip, you worried about what his answer would be. I can give you one chance to reach and save Kachan, Midoriya whispered to you softly. Seeing as Uraraka was distracting Todoroki at the moment because she knew of your plan and wanted to help, and if she trusted you, Midoriya should as well. Midoriya. Your eyes widened before softening gently. Thank you. You'd know what might help the most, and besides, Kachan seems to only be interested in you, so it might be best to send you in. Midoriya nodded to you slowly before he opened the door, allowing you to sneak in before anyone else had noticed. The rattling of the door closing and the lock being on it once more meant that you were in and now trapped inside this small space. You knew Bakugo would be desperate right now, and seeing as you were now in here meant that he would do whatever it takes to get you by himself. All you had to do was wait for him and do what you knew you had to do. Outside of the room, moments prior, Todoroki had turned away to the sound of Midoriya closing the door. And now, with your figure missing from where he knew it had been moments before, he could feel his heart sink at the thought. Midoriya. He walked forward, seeing Uraraka suddenly ceasing her talking. Where are they? Midoriya looked downward, biting his lip harshly as he attempted to think of what exactly to say to the half-human in front of him. Todoroki would not be happy to see that the one thing he feared had actually happened. His most precious friend inside of the room with the vampire that took a team of 7 to even get locked in there and away from them all. He was going to go in there and get them out. He would do anything to make sure no harm came to them. Midoriya, the door. He breathed, noticing the green-haired male had moved in front to block the door. Give them a chance, Midoriya spoke, a determined tone filling his voice. I trust them. and I think they're the only one who can help Kachan at this moment. Todoroki's eyes narrowed, fists gripping, but instead of shoving past and acting impulsively, like that small part of him that wanted him to, the part he no longer wanted running his actions and thoughts, he couldn't help but be tempted to do so. They're going to get hurt, and you have to understand that I can't lose them as well, Midoriya. He breathed out slowly. They're the only person I have left. I know, Todoroki, but to Kachan, they're the one thing he needs. Midoriya reached out a hand and lightly touched the other man's shoulder. I have a feeling that they are more to him than we know. And I think we both know what that is. Todoroki nodded slowly. I had a feeling, but I guess we'll find out in 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Midoriya mumbled, confusion etched onto his face. Yes, Todoroki breathed out, because in 5 minutes, I'm taking this door off its hinges and stopping whatever is happening in there. Inside of the room itself, you currently were laid out on the ground looking at smoldering crimson eyes above you. When he had snuck up behind you and forced you onto the ground, you didn't struggle. Are you fucking stupid? He growled, slipping into a laugh near the end. Fucking dumbass. Looking to die, huh? You sighed, relaxing into the carpet of your bedroom. It was funny. His threat didn't seem as harsh or real as it had been before. Almost as if he was trying to hide the worry and desperate demeanor underneath. But you could read him. You won't kill me, you softly mumbled, tilting your neck for him. I trust you, Bakugo. That's a fucking mistake. He chuckled, gripping your throat tightly. My entire intentions from the start were to kill you. No. Even if you thought so, you would never have done it. And how the hell do you know that? He spat, squeezing hard enough to make you squeak from his grip. Because... You started, seeing him allow you to breathe once more. Uraraka's protection spell let you in. So? He leaned downward, looking to be losing the little control he scraped together for this conversation. Toga couldn't get in. You could. He sighed once more. You were never meant to hurt me, and so you were allowed in. And even now, you won't kill me. Don't fucking talk like you know me, you stupid hunter. You laughed once as you felt his tongue begin to swirl against your skin, your feeling and sense numbing at the sensation of his paralyzing toxins invading your body once more. Even now, he was making sure this would be as painless as possible. That caring part of him fighting against the beast. Hey, you breathed out slowly, as he finished his prep and placed his mouth on your neck, the fangs protruding against and beginning to draw the first drops of blood from your neck. Try not to let Sho freak out over this, 'cause I know he will. Your hand traced his back gently as he finally got to the thing he had been wanting. At nearly the last moment, but the last minute win was still a win, right? And in this instance, knowing Bakugo would live another day was definitely a win. This was different though, this entire situation. Last time, some small part of you had been afraid that this would be your last moments, that he really would kill you and end your life right here and there. So many unspoken words and unaccomplished goals and dreams, an ending filled with regret. This time was much stranger. Despite the feeling of the red liquid inside of you being taken out by the rough pair of lips clasped onto your neck, you were calm. You knew he'd stop. You knew he'd come back. You might have only known him for a week, but Bakugo was someone with a big personality. He wasn't afraid to show off his rough exterior to others, but he also had that soft hidden side to him. The side of him that had carried you to bed after he knocked you out. The side of him that watched over you while you slept. The side of him that saved you from someone who really would kill you. The side of him that stayed around and helped you out. The side of him that you were slowly beginning to know. Something inside of you fluttered softly as your mind began to wander. A warm, budding feeling. Like the first day of spring after a long dark winter. The first rays of sunlight that hit your face after so long. Vivid, bright, and enlightening. A strange but somewhat accepting feeling in your chest about the current moment. Bakugo's lips parted from your neck momentarily, letting out a gasp of air he seemed to have been needing. And then he did something unexpected of him. He suddenly pulled you near him, almost in a hug-like state, his arms wrapping around you to keep you near and steady, as if you were safer this way. You had assumed it was for him to gain a better angle toward your neck once again. He was in great need after all, and therefore needed you to be as near him as possible. However, as the world around you began to dull over and become fuzzy from the loss of blood, one word muttered under his breath made you realize it could have been something else. One word that made you realize why he mattered so much to you and why you wanted him to be around more. Thanks. You simply nodded against his ash locks, eyes beginning to close and give in to the haziness of your mind and tiredness pulling at your body. But even as you drifted off into unconsciousness, you could tell that something was no longer the same. Bakugo was no longer the same to you. As his admittance to feeling grateful towards your charitable donation of blood to him had once more showed to you that your father's tales of vampires were more fiction than fact. As your head hit his shoulder and his mouth once more popped off your neck, you couldn't help but wonder who the true Bakugo Katsuki was, and if you would one day be able to truly know what this rapid beating of your heart meant whenever he had decided to come back to you.